is ripping.
My tummy hurts. Pretty good, right now.
Good evening, guys. It is Nick with Off the Chart Trading. It is Tuesday, the 7th of December in the year of 2021. What a day. We were looking for something like this yesterday to see if we could actually break through. We'll start with the ES. Let me make this full screen just to kind of show you what I was talking about yesterday in the room. That even though yesterday was a pretty solid day, you can see ever since that initial selling we saw, which was that Black Friday, right? Yeah. The following, that Monday was bullish, and it's like, all right, the usual, where we saw some selling, it's overdue. Once again, just using my color-coded candles, how many colors, do you see? What is the majority of your screen? It's kind of obvious it's been green, especially going back over about a month and a half. So to see this isn't too surprising. So Monday was kind of like business like usual. All right, we made it about halfway, a little more than halfway back. And then what happened? Some selling. Okay, and we took out the lows, which was kind of an alarming thing, especially since we took out Friday's lows. I was like, all right, maybe this is a little more serious. And then obviously throughout this day, we did try to retake it and failed. Ended up going out near the lows. Next day, it's like, all right, cool. We kind of retraced. We undid basically this entire candle, almost like engulfing it. Cool, awesome. So maybe the next candle will break out and we'll go higher. Nope. What do? More new lows. And that's what's tricky and sometimes very hard to trade these markets is, one, you go by looking at a whole year's worth of, and when you look back, it's like 1 or 2 days down, 1 or 2 days down, 1 or 2 days down, 1 or 2 days, a little more, serious selling, which we called, weeks in advance, knowing September's, traditionally, I don't want to say bearish, but if there is going to be selling and stuff, sometimes it's that self-fulfilling prophecy. Stock Almanac, kind of called the week in the 920 to be bearish, and sure enough, didn't really catch us off guard. But overall, normally throughout this entire year, whether you say 52 weeks or going back year to date, which funny enough is almost one and the same now, it's been, pretty much straight up. And you can't get more bullish than bottom left of your screen is a low and the high is the top right. So incredibly bullish year overall. And with that, not much selling. And when we have had selling, it's normally done within a couple days, a week or two at the very, very most. So when we have that kind of, I don't want to say history, but we can look back and say, traditionally speaking, when we have had some selling, there's typically it's sideways, maybe down a little bit, and then we rebound and continue to new highs. So this was a little concerning because it's almost like, once again, I call it stair stepping lower, like you're taking the stairs down. So even if you have a couple days that looks pretty good, potentially reversal, you sometimes have to wait a day or two or even longer to see if you are going to either break out one way or the other, break a trend, whatever, draw trend lines from here or from the bottom, whatever the case may be. I'm not a super technical trader. Obviously, I look at charts, but I kind of combine everything. I don't think the markets, work in absolutes. So neither do I. I don't like to have that clear, this is my exact number to the T, because how many times do you say, oh, it feels like the market always comes from my stops or whatever? And I think a lot of that's, I don't want to say binary, but just, I guess, human psychology or whatever. Those, I'm going to put my stop at 4,700. Well, you and everybody else and algos know that. And, I have a support line at that, or there's the most volume there. I don't know, some of that's so obvious to me that I try to think outside the box when it comes to that. I think within that mindset, there is an edge. That's just for me personally. So normally when I say, I'm looking for an area, I give specifics depending on the conditions of the market, mainly like for VPOC or TPOs for market profile. I'll give specifics, but when it comes to areas of resistance and support, I'm more of an area type of guy, kind of like more laid back, lenient, like, yeah, okay, cool, it broke the 50, but technically only 2 days did it close below the 50. So to me, it kind of held, you know what I mean? Like, that's how I approach it. More of a laid back approach when it comes to support and resistance and just overall trends and all that type of stuff. Sorry, I haven't been sick. I don't know what it is, but I've had something with my throat. It doesn't hurt, but I just feel, the nice phlegm. Maybe that's too TMI, but anyway, luckily I had some water here, so let me just take a sip of that. But anyway, Me. Back to my point was I was happy that we broke out, yesterday and we closed above these candles, but I didn't want to have the same thing where we end up having a very similar candle to this where it kind of engulfs it or completely takes it over. And then before you know, we're either newer lows or at least undoing this candle. So I was leaning more bullish, once again, seasonality, Santa Claus rally, and thinking that there was a lot of, selling during this period of time. We talked about the trend. We talked about the put call ratio. A lot of the internals and stuff that we look at on a daily basis was kind of telling us that whether it be tomorrow or later this week or next week, that there was a good sign that we would see another bounce or follow through. So I was leaning more bullish yesterday, but like I said in the room, I was looking for confirmation of a potential breakout. What's unfortunate is sometimes we did get it, but when you open up fairly, you open up and it feels like it's just a gap and go, and you're already up a good amount. It's tough to follow through with that sometimes. So you have to be positioned. We did have a few members today that did really, really well with the Qs and the ES or the SPY, depending on what your vehicle of choice is when it comes to playing the indexes long or short. That did, think or at least lay on the side or lean on the side of putting their weight to more of a bullish potential breakout. And sure enough, that is what I was looking for, because once again, it's just been this game of red light, green light. And then we have almost these 4 days of, we can't break above, I forgot what level I gave. I think it was like 46.20. I think just rounded up a little bit that I was looking for that to break. And then obviously this big candle today. So we are coming back up to almost where this started. As you can see, it's basically 4,700, maybe rounding up and saying, 47 and change. So what I am looking for tomorrow is and I'm looking at the corner of my eye. I mean, we're at 46.88 right now, so stone's throw away from 4,700. If we break 4,700, I highly doubt there's anybody short. And if they are, they're more likely underwater. End of the year, all that kind of good stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if they cover and we potentially go to all-time highs before the end of the year, maybe 47.50. Maybe they'll pin it towards that by the end of the year. But I would look for higher prices, and overall it would make sense if you're going to go back above 4,700, 47.20, 47, at least go for all-time highs. So I feel that would probably go out at the highs. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. Doesn't mean that we don't see selling tomorrow. But that's what I am looking at. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw this obviously started at 6 p.m. today, this candle, which will obviously lead into tomorrow's intraday trading, is we are, as of right now, getting that 8, 21, and 34 cross. That is what that white arrow is. So the 8, 21, and 34 are all stacked positively now, and I'm getting that white buy arrow. They're normally pretty powerful. You don't see them all the time on the daily. I'm just looking real quick. Yeah, last time right over here. And, it's not as clean, but you can kind of see it did confirm that breakout. Look at this. And once again, that's why I love my color-coded candles. Not only did you have the squeeze, but you also have chop. You're seeing different colors. It's just like a freaking Christmas tree. And then you get that, momentum shift higher. You're getting that white arrow. And then we did end up following good, almost for a full month. We did end up going higher without any type of pullback. So I'm not saying that's going to happen this time. And obviously if the ES goes red on the day and it drops a little bit, then these EMAs may no longer be stacked positively. So a lot can happen in the next 13, 14 hours. But I am saying it is setting up. That momentum is shifting higher. And I'm not saying it's deja vu after some selling and some chop, but it is something to be aware of. And it's just one point of reference that I use. But like I said, this was the confirmation. We're coming up to 4,700. I would look, for a test somewhere, just that psychological number, maybe like 47.50 going out at the end of the year. Doesn't mean we're going to hit that, but I think going long, especially after today, would make sense. And I always play the game is, once again, take yourself out of the equation, is think of other people potentially that have gone short, waiting for that big pullback. That's why I always love reading about FUD and they're printing too much money, or we're going to implode, or the dollar is going to be cut in half. I love when that stuff's all over YouTube and Discords and Facebook groups, because the more fear, more people, I can't take it, end up shorting, and then they get caught on the wrong side. And this is exactly what happens. I mean, the ES finished up at 100 points? Basically, like I said, undoing that entire candle from Friday. So if you're undoing an entire move, you have a lot of room up here now. I wouldn't be shocked if we end up once again. It's almost like a bus stop, or A to B to C to D. The next stop would be to clear 4,700. I wouldn't be shocked, once again, if this uptrend continues, that happens overnight. Maybe, we bounce off or consolidate around 4,700. Whether that happens today or we trade sideways or even come back a little bit tomorrow, we'll have to see, because this is a massive move in such a short period of time. So we'll just have to see how it goes. But other than that, everything looks pretty good. We'll look at the other futures indexes right now. NQ, another solid day, should be very similar. We actually got the 821 yesterday. Actually, one thing that's today. It's a nice confirmation there. EMA stack positive. You're getting a very similar candle. So tech was pretty strong today. I think it finished up on almost 3%, which is kind of crazy. Dow, very similar. It's been weaker overall, but it did find support around its 200, breaking up higher. And then the Russell actually had a pretty solid day as well. I was kind of shocked. It's obviously the weakest out of all of them. That's typically how it goes. It's still been in a squeeze. I mean, since freaking May. It's crazy on the weekly. I called for the high compression one. It did fire. We did end up getting all-time highs. I think I talked or joked about that maybe in the last video last week, or the one maybe on Tuesdays, that I jinxed the market, saying that once we get all-time highs in the Russell, we would see a pullback, and that's exactly what happened. So I'll be careful the next time I cast some bad voodoo onto the markets. Let me think. One thing I wanted to talk about, it's not necessarily with Lucid. Those that follow our Facebook group or in the paid room know that it is my biggest holding, even after I sold some shares yesterday. I look at it as a potential gift, because I was just trying to think of the best way to explain this to get my point across. I'm very bullish the stock. Been bullish since it was confirmed. Not confirmed, since the rumors going all the way back to the beginning of the year, when this thing was, we were trading this at $13 and stuff. And I don't like to buy long term off of rumors, but I was like, if this is legitimately Lucid, and this is, most people don't even know what Lucid was at the beginning of the year. I'm like, I like the car. I followed them. This would be great. And sure enough, we had that massive run once the euphoria ran off and the SPAC craziness, and once again that same time frame of end of February, early March, when anything growth related started pulling back. Not to mention when the valuation came out at that price and all that stuff, the stock completely dropped, and it's basically been in trading between $20 and $30 since then. We had that puke on 9/1, which I gave everyone in the room a heads up that would probably be the lows that we would ever see again. Once again, never 100% sure, but just in the realm of being realistic, unless we get another COVID 19.74 or whatever that's more deadly and we end up being cut in half again, I don't think we'll ever see $15, $16 again in this stock. But regardless, I've been bullish on this, and to get to the point is, I did end up having quite a few shares. I had ultimately, I think, 2,700 shares, and I laid out at 200 once we climbed up to the mid 20s, and then I got out another 500 once we got to 30, and then I was remaining in the 2,000 range till recently. And then yesterday when I woke up, I saw it was down, and I heard about the subpoena thing, which I'm not worried about that. That seems, Tesla went through that. Everybody seems to get subpoenaed. It's obviously more of a shakeup. One, because of how far it's come. Two, they're just getting started. So if Facebook gets subpoenaed, it's just another Wednesday. If Lucid gets subpoenaed, it's the end of the world. So I wasn't surprised about the selling. But one thing that it made me do was, I wasn't too worried about my overall portfolio. And for you guys that don't know, I focus on growth. I focus on a lot of, I think of myself as a baby Cathie Wood mixed on with some other ideas and stuff that I like to focus on what's going to be big in 5, 10, 15 years, because I don't see the value of getting an Amazon. Not that it won't go higher. I don't get excited for Apple. Not that it doesn't go higher. I think it actually hit all-time highs here, and even after hours, I think it was running on something. Not that that's not a safe bet, but, the ability to make 10x your money like you could have done on those names over the last 10, 15, 20 years, I think it's over. Not that they don't go higher, but their returns, they might still do well as far as selling iPhones and Amazon Web Services and this and that and, Google ads. And I'm not saying that potentially slows down. I'm just saying, as far as the simple math of, it's easier taking a $1 stock and making it 100% by it going to 2 than Amazon going to 7,000, or Apple going to 300 or whatever, 350 or whatever it have to be now. So that's just the way I look at it. Not that those haven't been on a, strong uptrend over the last 10, 15, 20 years, but I'm looking for technology that's going to be big, 5, 10, 15 years from now. So when you look back, like, oh, why didn't I buy this stock at this price type of thing? So 3D printing, the vertical takeoffs, a lot of gene editing and related stuff like that in the medical fields. Any technology, what's it, Sarcos robots, the robotic stuff I really like, AI like UPath and all that kind of stuff. So I'm into that. But my point is, a lot of those stocks they're not making money. They've been beat up, beat down, beat every which way this entire year. That's another reason I've liked it, is I'm not buying it back when every single stock was in euphoria land at the beginning of the year. I think there was a bubble. It popped in growth. Money left growth. This is mainly off of retail, high frequency traders, algos, whatever, getting all this up, because literally look at any stock that's growth related, and I guarantee for 99 out of 100 you look at, the pattern's the same. End of last year, early into this year, boom. And then around mid-February to maybe the beginning of March, they all have that same type of pattern. Palantir, any of the big Butterfly, DM, any of the big ones I like, the stock prices just went crazy. And now they're getting into fair value for most of them. Some, like Lucid, are going quicker than others. But if I can pick up shares of stocks that have been beat up, that I think the technology is going to be big, I don't look at it as, oh man, the stock just keeps getting beat up. No, I look at it as a buying opportunity. Just sit back for 2 seconds and think, doesn't that make the most sense is buy low? And if you are going to sell high, not chase and get in at $65 and hope and pray it goes to 100. No, getting in down here is typically, you look at a chart, you want to get in here. And if you are going to sell, you sell somewhere up here. Like, that's just trading 101. But yet, whether it's our, psyche or the consciousness or the FOMO, or because you saw 5 YouTube videos on it, whatever the case may be, we decide to get long over here, and then we wonder why we end up struggling with every other trade, because we're chasing. No one wants to buy it over here because it's dying and it's falling off a cliff, but that's when you want to buy. If it's a strong conviction play, that's when you want to buy it. So anyway, that's what I've been doing, buying a lot of stuff that's been down 60, 70, 80%. But once again, getting to my main point was I was carrying a margin balance, nothing too crazy. I think it was about 25, 30% of my entire account. But seeing Lucid down and knowing how that, even though I know this won't be a big deal in a year or two, I don't know what other people could potentially do. And I know since it's come so far so quick that it wouldn't be very hard to come out with some Seeking Alpha articles or YouTube videos. Aha, it's a scam. That we don't know. We have no idea what the subpoena is about, but we know it's sketchy and it's scammy, and you're going to watch 5 of those videos and you're going to sell your shares because you don't have any conviction. You go by whatever the high-flying ticker is on a scanner or whatever. Like I said, you read on it, oh, I saw this ticker 4 times on Discord, and that's the one I'm going to buy. Step back, and if that you're probably falling into that get-rich-quick crew, and I hate to say it, after trading for 12 years, those people don't make it. They might have a couple good trades here and there, but they don't stay consistent. And, little Timmy, little Bobby, little so-and-so, they don't end up making it. They might have a good, they screenshot that one good trade, and then the next 10, they bleed it all out and then some, and then they just disappear into the abyss of the internet because they don't have a plan. They're just going from stock to stock. So ultimately, if we were going to have a pullback in this market, which it might be in 3 weeks, might be in 3 months, might be in 3 years, I didn't want to be over leveraged in margin, and we are at record margin levels, which does worry me. So if we did end up seeing a pullback, knowing that people that are like, all right, you know what, we made a killing in the last almost 2 years now in this market, click the button, Fred, and they click it, and that's when they start really with the heavy selling pressure, and it would kill a lot of retail traders and a lot of funds that are on margin. And even though that's the name of the game, I don't want to get screwed over with that. So I looked at the Lucid drop and said, you know what, I'm up 100%, over 100% on this stock right now. I'm just going to sell some shares. I still have 1,000 shares. My average now is even better at like 1820 something. But I'm going to get back that. And I'm also going to cut back on a lot of positions. So I've been averaging down on a lot of my top picks like DM, Butterfly, and all that stuff just to get my average lower, knowing that it will eventually bounce. I just don't know when. Is that a week, a month, a year? Who knows? And I'm comfortable waiting. But if I don't have the say anymore when it comes to I get a margin call or it gets really, really bad, once again, that cascading is selling and that pounding that the market could take, once again, like a firecracker, you light it all the way down. If something like that happened, I don't want to get that call where I'm forced to make decisions that I don't want to make right now, especially when I'm trying to pick on 10 years into the horizon, the future, and I get a call in 2 weeks. So it made me reevaluate that I was over leveraged. Not crazy. Like I said, I still had quite a good amount of money that I could have used on margin. But if it does get bad, I don't want to be forced to make decisions, like I said, out of my control. Ultimately, it was my control to get into margin. But even though I'm still in that balance or whatever, I just didn't like the situation. So I had a good amount of money in margin. I ended up getting all that back. I'm cash positive now, or whatever you want to say it. So I took a little bit of a hit, but I did offset, Lucid shares. Like I said, I made a good amount of money on the 1,000 shares I sold. Got out of some of my EVgo and obviously a few trades I've had that have offset it. But ultimately, lowering my average and then lowering my exposure into a lot of stocks. I feel better now. No matter what happens, I can hold on my stuff. So I just wanted to talk about that. That I thought that was important. That sometimes it's good to step back, whether you're a swing trader, a day trader, or you are a mix, a hybrid like myself, where you will find a stock like this or another stock that you really like and you want to hold, but you never want to be forced to make a decision, whether it's off a YouTube video, a Discord conversation, or a margin call. You never want to be forced to make a decision outside of your own mind, even though sometimes I know it plays, I like to say, our biggest enemy in trading isn't the markets. It's ourselves. We always feel like we sold too early, or we got out too late, or we did this, or we should have taken the profit when we had it, or if we only held 5 more minutes, it would have been green, that type of mindset. So once again, the market doesn't care. The numbers are going to move like they are on the screen, plus or minus this and that, and life goes on. A lot of emotion. And like I said, the longer you do it, the longer you look at this stuff, the easier it gets. But I was just saying, I figured it would be good for me to go over why I made those decisions. And like I said, now I don't have any margin. I have money, I guess, powder on the sideline. If we do end up pulling back, I can get even better average and focus on the future with a lot of my long-term ideas. So that's what I personally did. Like I said, did I want to ultimately? No, but I'm kind of glad everything kind of fell the way it did, because, like I said, it just made it easier for me to make that decision. So, like I said, that's what I personally did. And there's nothing wrong with margin, because I also feel like people just assume, and if they don't know it, debt is not a bad word. You have a mortgage, you have debt. There's certain debt that's okay. And I also think of like credit cards, even though it's not necessarily debt. People are like, oh, don't use credit cards, blah, 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 blah. But I use credit cards because I assume as long as I swipe and I can pay it off at the end of the month, I'm good. So not only to get my bonus, my points and stuff like that, but I know some people that don't have any credit cards, strictly a debit card, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's kind of forcing yourself to be disciplined. But if you have the discipline, then there's nothing wrong with credit cards. Just how there's nothing wrong with margin. You just have to, it's a tool, but you just have to know how to use it. And unfortunately, I think the majority of people, if they are using it and heavily, they're gambling more than anything, or they just don't want to take a loss and they don't want to be proven wrong. So the ego and all those other things, play a factor in that. So I figured I'd just update you guys on what I did for my portfolio. I need to update the spreadsheet on the website because I did get out of some stuff, added some stuff, cut some positions in half. So I'm going to update that for the site. Members have full access to all that stuff. So if it's something that interests you, by all means, check it out. Like I said, I have long-term trades. I got swing trades, some scalps. I got into something else. What was it? This one, after hours. Was it Dare? Was that 292? Opened up, I think, at 430 or something like that. I don't remember my average. I think it's like 280 or something. But so I'm up a little bit. But I'm going to hold it longer. I think it got as high as like 320 after hours. Some of these names, especially if they're big news after hours, you'll see that gap up the next day. I'm not saying Dare is going to be one of them, but it might be one to keep an eye on. Normally, I don't play these types of things, but I don't mind buying 1,000 shares, especially since it's fairly inexpensive. And since it's been halted for the vast majority of the day, maybe there's, follow through the next day where this thing could open up at $4 or $5. That small cap hype, it gets on, YouTube and right, once again, the FOMO, all that stuff, retail, mainly retail, piling into this early in the morning, and that could be enough to get it higher. So I don't like taking trades off of hoping that somebody else is going to pay more, but at the end of the day, that is kind of what trading is you buy something and you hope somebody is going to be willing to pay more than what you did. I mean, that's literally how this whole thing works. So we'll see. Like I said, sometimes end of day, especially if there's news after hours, there is most of the time follow through. So this is definitely one to keep an eye on for tomorrow. Look at internals real quick. Solid day. Breadth ratios kind of went down towards the end of the day. Not too surprising, but at one point we were 16 to 1. I think we were 8 to 1 on the NASDAQ. So super strong. Advanced declines, back-to-back days where they're pegged are just incredibly strong. Let me zoom out. Is that right? Nah, doesn't look right to me, but maybe. Yeah, 21. I guess because it's not. Is it 2? Yeah, it should be on there. Anyway, from the lows of the day, we did see some increase going into the last hour, and then obviously the last 30 minutes, we did on and off see some buying cause the VIX to drop. Cumulative tick for the most part was straight up. Went sideways towards the end of the day. This, as far as the way it's building out, doesn't look right to me. There we go. Seeing how it changes. But anyway, overall solid on that. Bitcoin for the most part came down a little bit at the end, but it looked pretty good for the majority of the day. I know some people played Mara and Riot. That's typically our go-to if you don't want to play the exact currency. You can play Mara, Riot. We typically play the miners and stuff sometimes, or you can play GBTC. You know, the Ethereum one, HE, Grayscale and stuff. There's a bunch of ways of playing it. You just kind of pick. I think Coin was up quite nicely for the majority of the day. But like I said, we already kind of looked at the indexes overall. These are on a 15-minute chart. Everything looked pretty good today. Just once again, color-coded candles. What color do you see? I see green for 95% of the day. So overall, solid day. Tick distribution was a little weird. It was pretty strong the first part of the day for the first hour and a half. Dropped down below the zero line and then kind of hovered around it. So the ticks weren't super strong, which was kind of interesting. I figured the majority of the day they would be above the zero line. Mixing in breadth ratios and everything, I just assumed that it would be higher. Trend's a little low, so that's something to keep an eye on, whether it's sideways to down tomorrow, something to pay attention to. Put call was almost at 1. I think it was 9.7 on Friday. That's why we were kind of calling for some buying into yesterday and today. Amazon delivering my packages. It feels so freaking late. I don't. You think you would get used to this time change, but it's. I look at my phone. I feel like I'm gonna fall asleep, and it's only. Actually, it wasn't delivered. Now it's saying it's delayed. Anyway, 7:20, and it's like freaking pitch black outside. It went dark for the last 2 hours. Anyway, good old Amazon. But yeah, I mean, like I said, overall solid day. This was kind of something that I thought was a little interesting, but I do the majority rule concept when I look at this stuff, and everything was telling me just any weakness to buy it, and that ended up working out. ETFs, there's nothing to really specifically look at. It was very broad-based buying today. I think almost every single sector was green, if not every sector. Home builders did amazing, told the good earnings after hours. Pot was even up a bit. I forgot whether they were something with New York or something. I can't remember what to say. Something kind of indecision, but ultimately for the majority of the day, pot stocks were up. We'll end it on the profile. Super solid day. Like I said, the quick turnaround, because on Friday, you have time and volume and everything on the lower end. You open up and just completely puke. Have almost like that B formation, and just not looking too hot. Once again, you could say it was oversold, and we did get that bounce. We opened up, came back a little bit. Ultimately, the most volume and time was spent in the upper third of the profile. Overnight inventory, once we opened up, just straight up. Nice gap up. It was literally 2 ticks lower, 28 contracts at the low of the day, and just straight up. I mean, that is incredibly bullish to only drop 2 ticks from the open and then just go straight up. All that within 30 minutes. Did come back a little bit towards the end of the day. Not anywhere near the open, but we did. That gold bar is half back, which is basically taking the top and the bottom, and you're putting them, basically a line right in the middle. I talk about half back a lot. Not many people do. I don't know why. I think it's incredely important, especially when it comes to reading things, whether it's a candle or profile, just to kind of know. I always think of the analogy of like a tug of war game. If it's being pulled down here, it's bearish. If it's being pulled up here, it's bullish. And, as far as the soldiers, the more you see, especially if you don't know what you're looking at, just the more letters, which is time, the TPOs, on one side or the other, that's typically going to be, if it's above, it's a bullish day. If it's below, it's bearish. Once again, that's like super simple, but just so you kind of have an idea what you're looking at. And we have webinars if you're not familiar with profile, but I mean, literally the TPOs, 13. I mean, we spent the vast. I even mentioned this early in the day, 46.85. So super bullish. Most of the volume was traded at the upper end. So P formation complete 180 from Fridays. And was it Fridays, right? Yeah, Friday. Yep. And then yesterday was super bullish as well. I was kind of shocked because, as you can see, this is the overall going back a full month for this contract. And I was shocked. And the darker red is kind of today's volume, or the more recent. Orange is a little further on than yellow is like, all the way back over here. I assumed, and not to go too into it, but when it comes to like reading volume profile, since I'm very visual, I'm kind of unorthodox the way I view things. And I look at when you're reading the profile almost like you're mountain climbing in a sense. So like obviously down here is easy. This is pretty close to the ground. You're not really doing it. Obviously it's easier to go through areas where it's, very like there's not mountains, I call them, or big hills. Once again, almost like a child's way of approaching the markets, but it works for me. I am a man child when it comes to that. So, hopefully either I'm oversimplifying things or you're like, okay, I see the mountains, it depends on what type of trader you are. But anyway, I would think as you're getting to the summit, the peak where the most volume for the entire month was, that you would slow down a little bit. And right in here, volume, but we started building out above it. We came right through. I mean, there's only in that M period is towards the end of the day. So realistically, in the first hour, we blasted right through it. And I figured we kind of potentially slow down around here and build out. And we didn't. We kind of just went to the top of the mountain. We're like, all right, we're ready. And that's one thing I talk about too, is once you get to the top, anybody who's ever gone up a big hill or, mountain climbing or whatever, it's much easier going down than it is up. So once you can climb these hurdles, typically the market will move quicker. It is building out here. So we'll see how that works. But you can see there's not much up here because this is all-time highs all the way up here. So if we can break above that, 4709 area, I mean, there's not much volume. That's what makes me think we could potentially see 4750 or something along those lines over the next couple weeks. Like I said, we did end up seeing a little higher prices coming very close to 4700 and pulling back here. We are, once again, almost in line with where VPOC was, where the most volume was traded, and the TPOs, which is where the most time was spent. So this is considered the fairest price to do value. Not all the time do they overlap just like that as we're seeing price as I'm speaking, but the market seems to think this is a fair price and a good price, a good place to do business at 46.85. So we'll keep an eye on that and see how it opens. As always, hopefully this has been helpful, and I will catch you guys at the next one. You guys can always check us out at offthecharttrading.com or check out our Facebook. I'll include the link below. So by all means, you can come join us and check us out there. You guys have a wonderful night and take care.